Right, just gone live then for the UFRL Tier 3 race at Singapore. Got short qualifying followed by the 31 laps. We'll just check in with can't hear me, I hope. Well, can you hear me now, though? I did turn my mic off initially. But anyways. So, the Tier 3 standings, let's have a little look at them. So Harvey is leading the way in the AlphaTauri. He has a 3-point buffer to Andrew in the Williams and King Luke in the Haas. I believe all three are racing tonight. Sergeant Coffey is 4th, again in the Williams, so Williams, both drivers in the top 4. And it's Ray in the McLaren who won in round 1. And then Ray in the Alfa Romeo. Unfitted Noise also in the Alfa Romeo. Of course, he did have 1 week in Tier 4. I think, yeah, we've got 19 drivers tonight. Not sure which team have one missing. If I can figure it out. Might take a while to see who it could be. Oh wait, I think it's Mercedes. I can only see Betman in there for Mercedes, who is also a new driver in UFRL. But anyway, we are starting short quali for Singapore at the Marina Bay. Just have a little look at the Tier 3 constructors. I know we're doing the combined constructors, but yeah, Williams are leading the way, but Alfa Romeo, Haas and AlphaTauri all within 16 points, so it's still reasonably close, as you would expect it to be after just 2 rounds of Formula 1 action. So with that in mind, I'm now going to get the chat back up for Twitch. But it's just going through the tyre allocations, I believe, at the moment. And I would expect it to be hopefully pretty close at the top. I mean, yesterday I think UJGC was on pole by like, what was it, 9/10? That was mad. He set in a really good lap. But I'm just gonna set everything up then. I'll wait until the first driver comes out. Hopefully, so obviously it's dry in qualifying. Hopefully the drivers will see it dry in the race as well, but it's Singapore, anything can happen. Can easily get some rain, but I think the game does tend to ensure it is dry most of the time. Although I do think, personally, in one of the updates, there surely must have been some form of change in terms of the weather, because how often was it that early on in the game it was just a dry race like every single time? Whereas now I think we are starting to get a bit more of a variety. Just personally what I think anyways. But anyway, so we got Kingburn in the Alpine, who I think qualified quite nicely whilst holding for Tier 2 yesterday. Oh, Captain Goodeve left the session. Let's see if I can invite him back in. We did have issues with this yesterday actually, and more so on Monday night. So just invited Captain back into the lobby. So we're staying on board with Kingburn for his outlap with unfitted noise right behind, so quite easy to follow the pairing given that they are second and third in the leaderboard at the moment. And the majority of drivers are out on track. So Kingburn starting his flying lap then. Let's see how he is through the early chicane. Down to turns 1 and 2. Quite nice. You could take a lot of curb on there. So especially on the second part of the chicane. Although I'm saying that, I definitely struggled at this track anyway, so probably not the best person to take any sort of advice from. Even for tier 3, that's for sure. Although it does look like he runs a little bit wide, and that does cost him a little bit of time as well for the Alpine driver. There's certainly a couple of like blind spots at this track. I think there's one early in sector 3, I think it is. Oh no, so that's one of them as well. Do not want to be clipping the wall at all. If you do that, you're probably going to lose your tyre. And actually, when I had the rear wing damage yesterday, that's where my car sort of just spun. I think it was lucky Kingburn there to not invalidate, although not so lucky on the exit. I do wonder if he lost any of his front wing with that. So the first time though will not be set by Kingburn, it will be set by unfitted noise in the Alfa Romeo. And it is a 140.372 to open things up then. Seeing Dan go through in P2, 140.9. And it is a quicker time for Andrew, 139.5. See if anyone else is out there. So we've got King Luke coming through as well. Can he go any quicker than that? He does go quicker. He's 139.4. 1/10 quicker than Andrew. And what about Lewis coming through? Goes P7, 141.9. At the moment, I think if you want to go sub 140, that would be ideal. King goes in P4 with a 140.5. Next driver will be Mrs. P then in the Alfa Romeo, the second Alfa Romeo, alongside Unfitted Noise, and Mrs. P goes P9 ahead of Slater. And at the moment you've got Harvey also in sector 3 then. And after him it looks like there is El Grey and Betman. I think Betman is just ahead on track. So Harvey then, one of the contenders, but only a 141.8, only P8 for the AlphaTauri. Oh, Betman. Oh, he's in. Of course, he's not ahead. So it is going to be El Grey next in the Ferrari. How nice would he be then in the cars? His teammate Pro Beast is on an outlap as well. Of course, personally, I'll be keeping an eye on those two, being my teammates, of course. But let's see. El Grey then heads into the pits. So we will go on board with the Mercedes of Betman yet to set a time, and this will be his first. Just under 12 minutes of the session remaining, 1/3 of the way gone. Forza King Luke. Got a fan in there. And he is, of course, P1 at the moment, 1/10 ahead of Andrew. Andrew did sound, I say confident, although he was worried about spinning. So I don't know if that's confidence or not, but there you go. I'll let you guys decide on that one. But Betman just running the corner a little bit too much. And again, will cost him some exit speed, but he comes in and with a 143 flat for the Mercedes. New driver, of course, in UFRL this season. I think he only joined today and he goes P11 at the moment. What about, I think Pro Beast was the next driver to go through. What about the other two? So actually, it's WXX in the McLaren runs wide. Obviously, it costs him quite a few tenths there. But fortunately for the McLaren, does not invalidate his time. But I do wonder if he'll stay on that lap. Well, that's CPL in the Alpine, who doesn't run wide at the same corner that WXX did run wide at then. And I think an Aston Martin may have run out of fuel on the map. So every little section that he's driving in is turning yellow. So I think that suggests he has, or she has. I don't know which one it is. It's either Levi or Mrs. Levi or Lewis. So yeah, one of those two has run out of fuel. But I think they'll get into the pits soon enough before the McLaren comes through. So we'll go WXX, then we'll go CPL, and then we'll go back to Pro Beast for the end of their laps then. So WXX, does he go quickest? He does, 1:39 flat, 4 tenths quicker than King Luke. And now CPL, followed by Pro Beast. Let's see, can CPL, he won't go quickest of all. See, is he in the 42s? 42.3 goes P12. What about Pro Beast? Definitely not going to set a time with that. And that'll be a opportunity to go back into the pits for Pro Beast, providing he doesn't get disqualified for being on the track like that. But that's okay, and he is going back into the pits then. Not quite as comfortable as he was yesterday for the majority of it, from what I could tell at least. Again, similar to me, I don't think it's his best track, but I think if you can get P5 at Singapore, then, you know, I think you're doing something a bit right. So, for Pro Beast, oh, that's Betman in the Mercedes has crashed. Let's see if I can get any view of it. I think it was just in the background there in the Mercedes. Listen now. Where is he? King Luke just come by there, and that is a stricken Mercedes out of qualifying then. P13 at best, and that is with 6 drivers still yet, or 5 drivers still to set a time, and Slater behind with a 45 flat, 2 seconds behind. Let's see who is next then. Is it Harvey? It is indeed Harvey, although 2 minutes 20 on the board, I don't think that will be representative. Unfitted noise getting out of the way then of, I'm not sure who it was. Possibly Kingburn, maybe. Nope. Who was invalidated his lap actually. So let's see. I think King Luke then may just be the next driver to go through. Although again, 3.5 minutes on the board there. It won't be him to go P1, so we will stick with the Ferrari of El Grey. Sector 2 split of 108.417. Comfortably into Sector 3. I think there are some curves where you can certainly ride, but then others you want to just avoid a bit. Does run a little bit wide as well. Same again. So a couple of times just costing him a few tenths. And let's see what his lap time will be. I think he'll be into the 43s, 43.4 goes P14. So we still await the 5 drivers at the bottom to set a time. Slater, Hockey, Kingburn, Pro Beast and Captain Goodeve. What about Harvey? Would he go any quicker? I don't remember, 141.8. I think he will go quicker. 140.3 P5. Unfitted noise is on a quicker lap, and will he go quickest? He does go quicker, but he is out qualified now by Kingy, who comes through with of 39.7. So quicker times are being posted, and Kingy very lucky to stay in the session. As Andrew does go quickest, 38.7. And King Luke on a flying lap. Let's see, can he go quicker? No, 39 flat. Just losing out to WXX by 100th of a second. But it is Andrew, 3/10 up ahead of WXX and King Luke. And I think Proby starting his flying lap. But we've got yellow flags. It might be for the Aston Martin behind. Which one is it? Levi, maybe? Yeah. So the two Aston Martins, P9 and P12 at the moment. Suggesting that Levi is improving by about half a second, so we may just stay on board low. Which cars are going round at the moment? There are a few cars going round into Sector 3, but I think maybe we'll just have to move along a little bit. Dan is maybe not. Okay, unfitting noise, King E. So none of the leaders are setting a quicker time. What about these guys at the bottom? It may just have to be Lewis possibly is going to go quicker. So we'll actually stick then with the second Aston Martin at the moment. And Lewis comes in with a 140.9 and does topple his Aston Martin teammate. Goes P9, but Levi also on a considerably better lap at the moment. And should be able to make his way comfortably into the low 39s, I think, based on his laps. So could get into the top 3. Let's figure out, can he get himself up there? Probably not. Oh, he's lost a lot of time at the end, actually. He did gain about just under a second, so actually 140.044. Thought he was going to go quicker as he almost bins it into the wall, but Levi into the top 7 then. And it is Hockey is not going to improve, and also another very, very fortunate driver. Could have easily gone straight into the pits, which may have actually been better, but you do wonder if he could have been disqualified, or even worse, crashed his car out. I say even worse. Oh, and yeah, he's really struggling now. Do wonder if he has some form of rear wing damage, potentially. Or his tyres are overheated a lot. And he really just needs to take it easy now round the laps. Possibly at times just run a little bit wide, and again he spins round. So I think it would be ideal for Hockey. He just needs to cool his tyres down. Of course, you don't want to get in the way of any drivers. If there are some runoff areas, maybe just run off flare to just try to keep your car nice and cool, because also if you are staying still on the track, it will disqualify you eventually. So you want to get your car moving. He is stricken down in Sector 1. Again, he is starting to move his car. He is trying to stay out of the way. The car behind was just also warming up his tyres. Just take it easily. Yep, okay, he's retired from the session with that. Going to presume that was a result of, I guess, just trying to keep his tyres a bit cooler, but he struggled to do so following the spin around the final corner. To go round again. Is anybody stepping up on their times at the moment? CPL gaining almost 2/10. And Mrs. P did actually improve. Oh, and it's retired from the session. We have a minute of the session remaining. CPO as drivers are still improving their times. Let's see. It's not Captain, it's WXX. I'm not sure he didn't go any quicker. What about unfitted noise around the final corner then? Can he improve? No. Or yes he does, but doesn't improve position. And Andrew now, currently on provisional pole position, but also won't improve. And now let's see. This is his flying lap. King Luke likewise. You've got 20 seconds of the session remaining. You need to get yourself around the final corner. There is a Ferrari coming in. It is Pro Beast. He's going to be up against it. Will he get his car across? Oh, I think he just about will. So Pro Beast will be the final driver in a position to set a lap time. Unless you're on a lap already. So therefore we will go on board and with Sargent losing 2.5 tenths. Currently P4 doesn't look like he's going to improve on his lap time. And then you've got Harvey currently down in P11, also invalidating his time. Will not be an improvement for the AlphaTauri. Now Captain Good Evening in the McLaren, low on ERS, around the final few corners. And there are a couple of drivers very close to him on track, including his teammate WXX, who is in P2 of course. And it looks like Captain Good Eve is struggling. And I say that, it looks like he will improve his time. Maybe not, okay. Never mind on that. What about WXX? He does go quicker, and he is almost matching Andrew, both on a 38.7. There's a couple of other drivers coming through down the back then. We'll just stay, I think, with Kingy then. Oh, as Andrew does go quicker, 38.3. And King Luke takes P2. And there will be no improvement for Kingy down the back in the AlphaTauri. So it will be Andrew on pole, King Luke taking P2 and WXX P3. Those three storming out in front. Sargent, Unfitted Noise, CPL and Kingy also all into the 39s. And you've got Levi almost out of the 40s, but unfortunately a 40 flat. Captain, Dan and Harvey low into the 40s. Lewis just about getting into the 40s, 40.9. I think everyone is done, so it will be a grid order then. And unfortunately, personally, as a Ferrari driver, my two did seem to struggle. And in fact, there were a few drivers at the back who didn't set a lap time. Let's have a little look at it. Yeah, I say didn't. I mean, Pro Beast didn't, but then you've got Slater, Hockey, who I feel like they could probably have improved on their lap times for sure. And possibly you look at El Grey, Betman, over 4 seconds behind you. Imagine they could have improved as well. Mrs. P likewise, but then I'd also suggest, I know King Burn has much more pace than that. Yes, he just said. He got P8 in Tier 2 and then he gets P13 in Tier 3. Yeah, but he did out-qualify me yesterday as well. But King Burn down a P13, but he also does have more pace than that, I'm sure. So, but it is a track notorious for being challenging to overtake at, so pick your overtakes wisely. Well, I'm saying that. So we do with the 5-minute break now. And yeah, I was going to say, I am saying pick your overtakes wisely, of course. Trying to avoid contact, especially with it being around Singapore, similar to like the likes of Monaco, Hungary as well. It's quite difficult to overtake on. There are a few others, of course, but you just want to be careful when you do attempt to overtake at this track. Like you may get an opportunity possibly at turn 1 heading into the chicane, but you have to be very close to the driver ahead if you do want to make that move. I think there were moves being made under the, well, just after the safety car restarts down at turn 1 yesterday. So if you're close enough there, you can potentially make a move. And there are a couple of DRS straights, but they don't give you too much of a gain apart from the right-hander with the DRS. So at the moment we'll just have a look then through onto the race director. First time never works, second time. So the automatic tyre choice is the hards to the mediums, but then so far a couple of drivers have changed. You've got Sargent in P4 on the mediums and Harvey P11 on the softs. I think some drivers may just want to play around a little bit with their strategies. Lewis on the mediums at the moment, but yeah, just play around with your strategy, see what you think is best. Of course, it may depend on where you have qualified as well. I would love to help you out with what I found best, but I never really got into that position personally to say what tyre I found the best. Although I guess in the practice runs I was doing, I did actually feel okay on the hard tyres. Again, my pace wasn't particularly strong at this track, so not the most ideal to go and base it on, but I think the hard tyres weren't too bad. Maybe just a little bit slow off the line though, compared to soft and medium runners, potentially. So I would expect Harvey to have a strong start, but then, again, don't want to be making any dive bombs into turn 1. But he could gain a couple of places quite comfortably, I think, if the car's ahead on the hard tyres. But then you're also risking track position and would need to make an early stop. But then again, we've still got the potential of safety cars, of course. Be interesting tonight. Hopefully we won't get too many. Still think as a sergeant staying on the mediums at the moment. Got Mrs. P joining Lewis on the mediums and then Harvey staying on softs. Everybody else sticking with the white wall hard tyres at the moment. El Grey also currently on the softs in the Ferrari. Any other tyre changes? I'm just waiting when the 30-second countdown will begin. Sure, it won't be long for that. Let's see if I go into the Discord chat and have a little look. Is it in there? Must be in there somewhere. I just didn't quite see it, I don't think. Oh, there you go. 8:28. It is now 8:28. Are we able to go now, or are we waiting on someone? I'll wait. Obviously, wait for Mrs. P to have confirmation. So, of course, don't go without any confirmation. Okay, the 30-second countdown has begun. I'll do a 7 stop. I'll start on the full wets. Ferrari helped me with my strategy. I'm glad we can help somehow. Good stuff, Andrew. Taking it from the boys at Ferrari. That's really top stuff there. Might get you a top 19 finish today. But anyways, it looks like these tyres are final, and El Grey is the only driver on the soft tyres. So again, get everything set up. Those are your tyre choices then. So it's Andrew on the hards, King Luke splitting strategies on the mediums. So King Luke on the mediums, whereas Andrew and WXX on the hard tyres. Those three were very close in qualifying. And then you've got Sargent on the mediums as well, who would certainly feel like he has potential to push up with the top three. Unfitted Noise, of course, he did win. Was it round 1? I think he won in Tier 4. But now here he is in Tier 3, and we'll see what pace the Alfa Romeo has on show today. And then you've got CPL. I think so. It is 2 Williams who are also strong in the constructors, and they are strong at the moment. Then both in the top 4 as they are in Drivers' Championship. Yet Betman with his debut today. He did actually join today as well. And he is down in P16 in the Mercedes. Does have Slater and Hockey, the 2 Red Bulls, down in P17 and P18, and also Pro Beast P19 in the Ferrari. Imagine that, you've got the bottom 5, Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, Oh. Slater? Okay. Okay, you've got Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari, down in the bottom 5. That's amazing to see. I get the impression that I mean, I can't suggest who was on that one, but Mrs. P and Slater won't be too impressed with themselves. Well, I say themselves, with whatever happened there on the formation app, because now they'll have cold tyres at the start of the race, which I think will probably have. Well, I'll say that it surely will have a bit more impact on Mrs. P being on the mediums, where Slater is on the hards. If you've got cold tyres, you might as well have it on the hard tyres, so that at least you can get quicker tyres come the end of the race. As El Grey is moving all over the place in the Ferrari then. So we are onto the line. How is everybody lining up? Everybody is in position, including the backmarker Pro Beast then. And we're just waiting on something. Still waiting on something. Still waiting on something. Just waiting for one light to turn on. Don't think the lights are wanting to start. Although, I did see a late disqualification at the back, which may have been the cause of that issue. Maybe Slater, or yeah, I think it may have been Slater. Still waiting. Oh, this is a long delay, isn't it? I'm just going to take a screenshot of the order just in case we need to do a grid reset, and I think... Oh, really? So now it decides it wants to start the race? I mean, that's a bit of a joke, isn't it? One driver leaves, then it's like, oh, let's start the race officially, and there you go. So I'm guessing we're surely going to have a reset. Presuming, with Mrs. P leaving the session. Just in case we don't, I will continue with the comms for this, and it is King Luke into the lead on the medium tyres, so that's yellow flags in Sector 1. But, oh, Mrs. P has now joined. To be fair to Mrs. P, you've got a good start up in P12, so positive news then. And it looks like Pro Beast has lost his front wing in the Ferrari. do wonder with Harvey dropping back in the AvaTauri, could those two maybe have had contact? Although Pro Beast has had his struggles tonight. We'll have a look then. Position changes. So Harvey is down 7. As he's looking to make a move on Slater ahead. And there is also the other Ferrari of El Grey. Oh, this is not a good week for the Ferraris, I am not going to lie. We're going to be dropping down the Constructors' Championship. But let's see then. Harvey is up ahead of Slater as well. Oh, and CPL was out, and let's see if we can see where, and he is there in the Alpine, and that's actually been overtaken by King Burn. I say that there are 2 ghosted cars of Mrs. P and Captain who have also overtaken, I think, under the virtual safety car. I'm trying to figure out, is Mrs. P actually ghosted? I don't think Mrs. P is ghosted, but Captain is still ghosted. So I think under the virtual safety car, I'm just going to invite him back in. Does seem like he is still having his struggles though. So just invited Captain Good Eve into this session. And the top 3 though, fortunately with King Luke entering WXX, still all right up there with Unfitted Noise P4 as well. Dan has retired from the session. I think, was that in the pits possibly? Definitely running very slow here with Batman leading it. And Andrew has a drive-through penalty for speeding under the virtual safety car. A lot of mess going on because of the cars are ghosted. So Mrs. P actually letting Hockey through with Captain's Ghost just behind. But we are back to green flag racing. And I'll be honest, I think the best... Yeah, so those drivers, Mrs. P and Captain, weren't involved at all with Batman being 12 seconds behind. With also Harvey, Slater, El Grey directly behind as well. Pro Beast well adrift. Let's see, is anybody making gains? El Grey has completed a pass on Slater. And is actually quite comfortably ahead of the Red Bull driver, and also moves be made because King Burn heading in the pits in the Alpine. As Mrs. P and Captain Good Eve, the ghost of Captain of course, in P11. Let's see any other opportunities. Potentially Levi quite close to Kingy ahead, and there has been a bit of a gap to P4, so 3 seconds between WXX in P3 and Unfitted Noise in P4. There's a gap between the 2 Aston Martins of Levi and Lewis of 2.5 seconds, then back between Sargent P8 and Hockey P9, it's 5.2 seconds. Move still being made. Harvey has made the overtake on Betman. El Grey in the Ferrari is just behind. And with the soft compound tyres makes a move which surely was not on. El Grey just has to be more patient there. Surely. Even as my teammate, I just think he has to... He shouldn't be going for that move from way back there. But he is in P13, at least in the race. But I'm personally very sure the stewards will have a look at that anyways. As Captain continues with his struggles then. Andrew into the pit from the hard tyres. Presume he must... Oh yeah, he had the drive-through penalty, so he's going to drop all the way down now. And it's King Luke from WXX in the top two. Andrew dropping way down the order. Let's see where he comes out. Is he ahead of Mrs. P? Side by side, in fact. And actually, Andrew does have a top 10 spot at least. But on the hard tyres, you imagine he will be making some gains as Lewis and Sargent side by side. And I think the Williams has the position. Ooh, but Lewis fighting back, and staying ahead. Again, side by side, battling at and we are here. Oh, Lewis goes a bit wide, and Sargent, no contact made. So still solid driving in terms of no contact at all made between the pairing. But Lewis has the position still ahead of Sargent, and this was a real battle between the pairing. And Lewis has the 4.7 seconds back to to Levi. I think now Sargent will want to close up a bit more. Sargent also has more ERS, more than half of it left. Lewis has about 30%. See if there are any other closer battles. Andrew closing in on the ghost of Captain. Is anyone in AI? I think it is only Captain Goodeve, from what I've seen, and also Hockey now because he has spun round. May have damage and also dropping down the order. Dan's just left, although he was retired in a ways. I think everyone else is not AI, so it's just Captain Goodeve. And a move being made, Levi overtaking Kingy, and the Aston Martin has now got himself into P4. So whilst we saw some sublime defence by one Aston Martin, we have now seen an overtake by the other. So a solid start for the pairing in the Aston Martin. Levi P4, Lewis P6. Kingy is still on the back of Levi, however, and has the aid of DRS. Oh, runs in deep. And Kingy surely going to lose the place to Lewis. And it is a double Aston Martin top 5. Kingy dropping down to P7, losing places to Lewis and Sargent. And now Levi has an opportunity to close the gap to Unfitted Noise in on the podium position at the moment. King Luke running away with it. 4 seconds the gap to WXX on the medium tyres, however. So there's still potential WXX can get back into the battle come the end of the race. Sargent still all over the back of Lewis, 7/10, but not making inroads. How about the back? King Burn closing in on Betman, about half a second behind. Oh, yellow flags behind, and it's Hockey again. But King Burn still chasing down on Betman in the Mercedes. This will be a frustration for the Alpine. But I do think Anel Grey, something has happened as Betman runs wide in the Mercedes and King Burn takes an interesting line. But should make the move down at turn 1. In fact, does he? It looks like there is a defence on by Betman, but Betman does lose and concede the position to King Burn. Very interesting line by King Burn at the final corner. I do wonder if he got a warning for that as well. But King Burn up into the top 12 and now has some clear air ahead to chase down Harvey. And a pit stop being made, and also King Burn may have got a warning potentially for that as well. But Hockey into the pits may get himself lapped. Sargent still chasing down Lewis, still well within the 1 second window. Mrs. P got back in her car. Her tyres were minus 20. Jesus, bit cold, bit chilly, eh? Are her tyres back to normal now, or I'm presuming 7 laps in they should be up quite nicely, but minus 20. Wow. Oh, we see Lewis did actually run wide, and again, maybe a corner cutting warning for the Aston Martin. Kingy is starting, I think, to close the gap to the top 6 now, of course, having ran off. I say that, yes, dropping back probably because of the aid of DRS. Sargent still right behind, Lewis ahead, continuing his stern defence. Slater at the back is making a pit stop. Let's see where Earl Grey is at the moment. Still behind Betman, who will have DRS still from King Burn, doing very well to stay within the 1 second window, I have to admit. Although he does seem to... Oh, there you go. King Burn has now got a 3 second time penalty. The first to receive a corner cutting penalty today. Go back then, as Pro Beast also in the pits in the Ferrari, and has now been, I say now, I think he is lapped quite nicely by King Luke. Although maybe lapped twice actually. It seems Sargent just losing a little bit of time on the exits, but then is able to make gains with DRS, but it's not really closing in on Lewis as much as he would have hoped. Slater also picking up a 3 second penalty, so King Burn is not alone in that position at least. Oh, and there is Ferrari, I think, of Pro Beast continuing his struggles, which amazes me. And there is a full course safety car. In fact, it is the first full course safety car that we've had today. And there may be an opportunity for the medium tyre runners to enter the pit, or even the soft tyre runners. Earl Grey at the back. Or a drive-through penalty for Slater as well. Not the race he was planning in the Red Bull. So King Luke on the mediums. Surely he will... Oh, and actually, I just missed something. Kingy is out of the race. And sadly, his card has completely disappeared. I'm not sure where it was, but Kingy out of the race in the AlphaTauri was, of course, chasing down the top 6, I believe, and then, well, he was battling with Levi, but then all of a sudden, losing the places to Lewis and Sargent as a result of running wide, and then has had to retire his car. So, no points on board for Kingy, unfortunately for him. 2 Aston Martin still running nicely, and now at C, King Luke stays out. Is everybody opting to stay out? So all of the top 4 staying out. Will Lewis be the first to make an opportunist pit stop? I think he is. So Lewis entering the pits in the on the medium. Sargent is following him in. That white line there is so off-putting, I'm not going to lie, because there's been a couple of times where I've seen it and thought, oh, you know, you've got to stop quickly, but then it's the next white line that matters most. But there you go. A few drivers now. Andrew also opting to make a pit stop from his hard tyres. And was held up a bit as well, changing his front wing. As Pro Beast has now retired from the session. His race yesterday went far better than what it did today. And there you go, Andrew out of the pits. Mrs. P entering the pits likewise, and is out of it ahead of Andrew. So what about Earl Grey? And Earl Grey, thankfully for him, has not been lapped. What about Hockey Iceman? If I'm Hockey, do not make a pit stop here. Do not pit here. If you're going to pit, pit next lap. Because if you pit now, you will surely be lapped. And of course, you cannot unlap yourself. So Hockey is staying out, thankfully. But he may be able to pit next lap. But it just depends if the safety car is coming in. Possibly next lap. Unfortunately for Slater, he is not in a position to unlap himself. Sadly, it is a fault of the game. Got a glitch with warnings. Nah, for me it looked like your warnings were totally fair. Nah, okay, fair enough. You can clip something, right? Don't know, it might be a lobby thing, possibly. Slater now heading into the pits, you do just wonder if he's going to retire his car, having been lapped, or will he stay out? Oh, he's had to change his front wing, so never mind on that one. Okay. I got no warnings, I mean. Yeah, I mean, yeah, just surely you have to clip. How do you, I'm guessing you don't stream, so it might be difficult for you. Oh, actually, no. The way you can do it is at the end of the race, go through the incidents, and it will show that you have no warnings. Um, and then you can say that. But then it depends. I think your 30-second penalty was for multiple warnings, I believe. So, yeah, at the end of the race, just remember to go through the incidents and then clip that. And then it should show up with no warnings before your first penalty. But it may show up on there, like you've got the warnings. It just may not have showed you it in game, which of course, again, shouldn't really have happened. But yeah, just have a look at the incidents at the end of the race. I think I'll do that as well, because I believe I did it before. Was it for tier 4 last week? If I remember, I'll have a look at it as well. Anyway, so top 5 did not make a pit stop, but Lewis, P6, having pitted already. What a position he is in. Could it be a potential race win on the cards? You just wonder with how are we going to get more safety cars? We may get another one or two, but at the rate we're going at, we may not get too many. Which on a personal basis, I'm loving the look of. I think you do want to get as few safety cars as possible, and it looks like tier 3 are at least delivering on that. Is Captain Goody back in his car? He is not, unfortunately. Yeah, he's been struggling a lot, I think, to actually stay in the lobby. But everyone else seems okay. So I'm going to take a presumption it may be something related to just Captain, I'm not sure. Could be a lobby issue, but everyone else seems okay. Just flicking through. Nobody else is ghosted. No, so it is literally just Captain Goody who is ghosted. And there you go. Slater has now passed the last car who was DNF'd, and that was Levi Hughes, of course. And I say of course, the Aston Martin retiring, unfortunately for him. But his teammate is in a good position to take some solid points at the moment. However, he does have King Burn behind him. So I do wonder, can Lewis keep King Burn behind? Unfortunately for Lewis, he will prefer to be chasing down drivers ahead. Hockey Iceman indeed has pitted for mediums. Do just wonder, can they go to the end? And at this moment in time, he just needs to drive as if the safety car is not out. Because he's got to try and get as close to the field as he possibly can. But unfortunately, he won't be able to catch up to it. So it's King Luke on the medium tyres. However, at this moment in the race, you do just wonder, will WXX's hard tyres, who actually has been lagging a lot, I've seen, in this race. I don't think that's my internet. It might be, you never know. But WXX has actually lost ground. An unfair noise to see. Does he make a move into turn 1? Thankfully not. So, any other moves being made? Harvey running wide. Lewis holding position ahead of King Burn. Sargent right behind. Yellow flags at the back. And it's for Mrs. P. But Mrs. P should be able to keep it on track and stay in P12. But Hockey Iceman will be closing the gap. Let's see, so we've got Harvey. A few drivers actually very close to each other. We've got Harvey, and then we've got Lewis, King Burn, and Andrew now is into the top 8 on the medium tyres. Captain has joined again, and there are yellow flags at the back. And it is for Hockey Iceman. So Hockey Iceman and Slater down in the Red Bulls and struggling. Slater is a lap down. So you've got Captain still not in the... Well, I think he's in the lobby, but he's not quite got control of his car. Let's go back to Andrew, and he may just be able to push for an overtake on King Burn, who has actually lost time ahead to Lewis. Must have made a mistake somewhere. And again, this race is not quite going so smoothly for King Burn as I would have thought it may have done, but he did qualify down, I think, was it P13? No, actually, Andrew opts for a pit stop. And the Williams, let's see what tyres he opts to go on. Actually, I'm just going to quickly move to the action with Lewis still chasing down Harvey, and actually his hard tyres are working reasonably well for him at the moment. Let's see, where does Andrew change a front wing? Well, that's Sargent as well. Slater in the pits, likewise in the Red Bull at the back. And he actually is coming out ahead of Andrew, I'm seeing. But is it going to be a change of front wing as well? Yes. A bit slow though, the Williams pit crew, to get him out. But there you go, on the soft tyres goes both Andrew and Sargent. Interesting strategy for Andrew and Sargent. Both of them were contenders, you feel, as Lewis continues to chase down Harvey ahead. Still in a very strong position is the Aston Martin. Hockey Iceman now picking up his penalty as Lewis does go in too deep. Almost connects with Harvey. Fortunately, no contact made. And there is a wide line for Harvey, which allows and enables Lewis to make the move. Does he? No, just about avoids any contact. Very reasonable driving, however, by both of them. To not make any contact, you've got to say, very well done. Lewis stays close. WXX now pitting from the hard tyres. Surely mediums are going on for the McLaren. But it's an interesting time to pit right now, because if you're pitting now, you're just going to put yourself way down the order. And I think you will come out potentially behind Mrs. P. But, like, yeah, just pitting this early on after the safety car restart, I don't think it's the way to go personally. Especially if you're a front runner, as Lewis again has to avoid contact with Harvey. So whilst I'm saying that they are racing well, I believe, but like Lewis is just a couple of times just off with his braking, and it is just costing him a bit of time. You've still got Kingburn in the background, who will feel as if he can catch up to these two drivers. So Lewis really does need to make a move, stick at some point. Red Bull having a mare at the moment. Yep, they are. I would say I feel the same way with my team Ferrari, although El Grey is now picked up, I think. Pro Beast, of course, has retired. But I do think they could both still get themselves some decent points. I mean, P13, P14 will still get you a fair few points, regardless. As WXX has made a move on Mrs. P, who has spun, but can hopefully still keep it on track. Will lose the place also to some, I think it's the ghost of Slater. Lewis still continuing his fight back with Harvey. And just a few cars behind you do have El Grey chasing down the new driver, Betman. How many safety cars they had? I think we've had, was it 2 safety cars or just the 1? I think we've had 1 or 2 virtuals. El Grey has lost some of his front wing, but I think El Grey fortunately staying in the race, but will have to change his front wing, and that will drop him down probably only 2 positions. So Andrew should have taken a corner cutting warning for that, I think, or exceeding track limits at least. But Lewis still chasing down Harvey ahead, but not quite completing an overtake, and this will be frustrating him. King Byrne, however, is not closing in. He's losing a bit of time, which again is surprising, but it may be similar to me in terms of not quite having success at this track. But there you go, another mistake made by the Alpine, and he still continues to lose time. I do just wonder if it is just because he is making the odd mistake and it just costs him a second or 2 seconds. Then maybe at some point he starts to catch back up, and then all of a sudden he's losing time again. And you also question, does he have any sort of damage? Let's see if I can see anything. It doesn't look like it. And he's actually opting for a pit stop then from the hard tyres. So Kingburn is in. Lewis continuing to chase down Harvey ahead, and this will be frustrating for him. Just if he can make the move on the AlphaTauri ahead, and there's an opportunity here because Harvey has ran wide but places his car very nicely, and this is going to deny Lewis P3 once again. But still, the more Lewis can just stay behind Harvey and just try to force mistakes from the AlphaTauri, not necessarily push to overtake, except for here. No, not getting the traction down, unfortunately. But there are opportunities for Lewis still. The closer he can keep to Harvey ahead, the more likely Harvey will make a mistake, such as running wide. I don't think here is a genuine overtaking opportunity, to be honest, though. But they are losing a lot of time to King Luke and Unfitted Noise ahead. I think another safety car would be beneficial potentially for Lewis. Surely it would be. He would have the lead of the race, I think, because I think the 3 ahead would pit for mediums or hards, depending on what tyres they're on right now. Oh, is Captain Goodeve back in the race? I think Captain is back. He is not ghosted. Captain at Goodeve in the McLaren is back in the race, and now can chase down the top 4. Of course, Harvey and Lewis have had their battles throughout, since the safety car, but Captain Goodeve will look to close in. Then you've got Lee's duo as well. You've got Andrew P8, Kingburn P9. It looks like Andrew will still have to pit. WXX sets a fastest lap, 42.599 in the McLaren. And he is P7. Sadly, I do think there has been a lot of lag for the McLaren for this race, whereas I think others have been okay for it, from what I've seen at least. We'll go back clearness. It looks like the only battle right now is between Harvey and Lewis, but you still just wonder, can the likes of WXX, Andrew and Kingburn catch up? You've still got Sargent down there as well, P10, on soft tyres. And Captain Goodeve is certainly catching up to these two ahead, so Lewis does need to make a move on and complete an overtake. Otherwise, he will be having Captain Goodeve all over the back of him as well. But the addition of Captain Goodeve in this fight surely will just add more pressure to Harvey. One driver you may be okay with, but if you've got two drivers, that may be where you get a bit more concerned. And yeah, he is definitely struggling with his battery. Whereas the other two, particularly Harvey, very nice. Harvey 76%. And Captain Goodeve is within DRS range of Lewis, so it is now a three-way fight for P3. And you've also got WXX making the move on Better Man in the Mercedes down at the final corner, heading into turn 1. And it looks like, oh, very close, potential contact made, but WXX has the position. And now Andrew will look to close the gap to those. And in fact, Captain has passed Lewis. Lewis has made a mistake somewhere early in Sector 1 and has been overtaken by Captain, who will now look to chase down Harvey. So, whilst we did think Lewis could have fought for a win, some form of mistake or contact, whatever it may have been, may just cost Lewis, at the moment, a battle for P3. Overtakes being made at the back, El Grey passing Sargent as a result of Sargent pitting, Slater picking up a 3-second penalty as well. Now yellow flags in Sector 3. Couldn't quite see who it could have been for. It may have been for Hockey Iceman, I think. As again, we'll go with this battle, Harvey and Captain Goodeve. Captain did pass Lewis, I'm not sure exactly whereabout, into Sector 1, but it does look like the two McLarens may have a lag for their cars actually. And King Luke in the pits on the hard tyres. Will he come out ahead of Lewis? This may be a battle, and maybe has King Luke quite got it right? I don't think he has. He has lost the place to Lewis, and that could be pivotal. Because now, if King Luke gets held up enough, you've also got WXX right behind, who I think will look to push his mediums to the end. Cold tyres for King Luke, and WXX should make the pass now. Can he make it stick? King Luke down the inside, but WXX is ahead in the McLaren and is P5, both chasing down Lewis, but this is fantastic for WXX, that is for sure, and has the position ahead of King Luke. King Luke, of course, was leading the race, and it may be beneficial for unfitted noise in the lead. King Burn with another 3-second penalty. Hopefully he was picking up his warnings then. That'd be interesting. But looks now, early on we were suggesting that the Aston Martins were looking strong. Before that it looked like the Williams were looking strong. But now it is the two McLarens. I mean, it would be interesting if Captain Goodeve is allowed the points to stand, if he can stay in the race from now until the end. Of course, he would have made some big gains early on from his AI. However, he has drove very well from what I've seen when he has been in it, so it would be interesting for sure. WXX now is all over the back of Lewis already. Captain likewise chasing down Harvey, but WXX much closer, and with the use of his very minimal ERS, with use of DRS, making the move into turn 1, potentially cutting the corner, but has P4. And now it's all up to King Luke. Can he now make a move on Lewis? Much more ERS charge for King Luke, over 50%. Lewis still within DRS range, using up his ERS again. And you just wonder at this point, could Lewis just hold back on his ERS, hope for another safety car late in the race, and just charge his ERS back up? I don't think there's a point fighting with WXX and King Luke, personally at least. And once cars ahead pit, Lewis should be quite comfortably ahead of them if he is looking to run until the end. So Harvey, for example, is not that far ahead of Lewis. I'll actually get the gap to the leader. And as you see, there's only about 7 seconds between Harvey P2 and Lewis P5. Lewis, I don't think, has to pit again. So Lewis, in effect, whilst he is going to lose out to WXX and King Luke here, Andrew still has to pit because his softs will not go until the end. So it is still possible that Lewis could be battling for podium. But now it's interesting. Unfitted Noise is in the pit in the Alfa Romeo. And it'll be interesting with those gaps. About 20 seconds to King Luke, 21 to Lewis as well. Where will he come out? So WXX stays now into the lead of the race, and you've got King Luke following him in P2, and it is Lewis up in the podium positions now, P3. However, and we say however, Unfitted Noise out on soft tyres. Can those softs run to the end? It will be a ferocious struggle, you feel, for the Alfa Romeo. And then after him it is Andrew, who is on 8-lap old soft tyres, so I don't think there's a worry for Lewis there. The only worry will be Unfitted Noise. Potentially could get his softs to the end, but they will be dead by the end of the race. So, but the gap between them is only about 3.5 seconds, so we can certainly catch up to Lewis and should quickly overtake him. Although for Unfitted Noise, it just depends. Can Andrew keep pace? And it looks like right now he is not doing so. So it's just up to Unfitted Noise to pass Lewis, and then can he catch up to WXX and King Luke? Yellow flags in sector 2, which I think has come to nothing. So whilst this battle was going on, I also see El Grey closing in on Mrs. P. Just over a second separating them. This is a battle to be in the top 10. And then you've got Captain still closing in on Harvey. Both on fresh medium tyres. And now Unfitted Noise is within DRS range. Has not turned on his DRS. Turn on your DRS. And he's not using his ERS. But has still made a move on Lewis. Who needs DRS and ERS at Singapore? Unfitted Noise will tell you he doesn't. And now yellow flags. And it is again once more for Hockey Iceman. However, and I will continue to mention this, the two Red Bulls, whilst they are struggling, are still getting points down in P13 and P14. So even if El Grey, for instance, in the Ferrari, my teammate, even if he does finish ahead of those two, he will still lose out in the constructors to the pairing of the Red Bull. And how about at the back we still, and it is Captain still closing in on Harvey ahead, and also El Grey pushing to be within a second of Mrs. P. More yellow flags, and you do wonder, is it Hockey once more? Indeed it is. The Red Bulls really want this race to finish right now, you just feel. Although, those two could effectively be battling for position now. And Mrs. P has been passed by El Grey for P10. So El Grey into the top 10 on the Ferrari then. Oh, Andrew has spun! The soft tyres 9 laps in. And this could be great news also for Lewis, because if those softs are struggling at this moment in time, you just wonder, can Unfitted Noise take his softs to the end of the race? And now Andrew has the threat of Kingburn behind, but surely Andrew has to pit this lap. Unfitted Noise, a 42 flat, goes quickest in WXX. Has he already got a penalty? He may do. No, he doesn't. Okay, 3 seconds. So it's actually... And it is a pit stop being made by Andrew, so... Lewis is actually very far behind Unfitted Noise now. It's over 6 seconds separating them. Unfitted Noise looking very, very pacey on the soft tyres. Can he catch up to the top 2? King Luke is within 1 second of WXX as well. And because of that penalty for WXX, King Luke would effectively be winning this race. However... still needs to be wary of Unfitted Noise on the soft tyres. Just wonder over the coming laps, can Unfitted Noise close in? 4.8 seconds behind King Luke right now. And now the battle's on between Harvey in P6 and Captain in P7. And Captain just avoids making a move. See where the ERS is at. Harvey still very strong. 80% on his ERS. So should be able to be in a position to defend from the Captain. Pit stop made at the back with Slater. Looks like the 2 Red Bulls are battling for sure. Even if they are laps down, they're still getting the points, so it doesn't matter too much for those two. Yep, he is now within the 1 second window. Oh, we're talking about King Luke in the battle for the lead. Yellow flag is ahead. That may be for the Red Bull potentially. I think indeed it is. There you go. So WXX just ahead of King Luke then. And actually we see Captain Goodeve has made a mistake. And therefore it's dropped well down behind Harvey. Almost 8 seconds. It is now over 8 seconds. Andrew in on fresh soft tyres can run those to the end, I believe. And will now chase down a Mercedes of Betman, who is in a solid top 8, but will surely lose that 1 position to Andrew very soon. And more yellow flags for one of the Red Bulls. Slater looks like he is struggling there, but it's certainly hockey. But what I will say though, it's great resilience shown by the 2 Red Bulls at the back. Like, on a personal basis, I was trying to go to the end, even with my considerable damage yesterday, but I think it's a great attitude to have to try and get to the end of the race, try and score your team points, even though it may be frustrating that you're having your struggles. But if you get your team some points, I think your team will certainly say that's a great job, or a great effort at the very least. And it looks like that is what is happening with the 2 Red Bulls. Betman has now been passed by Andrew. So Andrew up into the top 8. And the battle still on between the top 2 and King Luke. I think, because it doesn't look like Unfitted Noise is gaining by a considerable distance at the moment. Although he may be in a position where he could pit right now and would effectively come out only behind Lewis. I think he would come out ahead of King Burn. So he could opt for another set of soft tyres. But sadly we can't see what percentage of soft tyres are on. It would be so nice if the game allowed us to see that. Yeah, he is. He's not gaining enough. And he's actually potentially starting to lose a bit of time, in fact. But don't forget, a lot of it could be related also to the fact that King Luke is in DRS range of WXX, which is helping him stay in the top two. Oh, that's not helping him stay in the top two. An unfitted noise now has the position over King Luke, and it was a potential race win for King Luke, and he has thrown it away. And now, so King Luke, oh, that is so frustrating for him. It was a race win on the cards because WXX has the 3-second penalty, and he has lost it. So now Unfitted Noise, I don't think Unfitted Noise is thinking about a pit stop at all. And why would you? 3.4 seconds between WXX and Unfitted Noise. We are on lap 26 out of 31. And it is surely down to these two. Carvey, meanwhile, is chasing down King Burn, who still has his penalty. 6 seconds worth, in fact. In terms of position changes, got quite a few. 8 places up for Lewis and King Burn. And now your penalty, 6 seconds for King Burn, 3 seconds for WXX. Those are the two pivotal ones. So, Unfitted Noise still within a strong position now, because he just needs to get himself into within 3 seconds of WXX, and then he will take the victory. However, he is just struggling at the moment to deliver inside 3 seconds. Late braking by Harvey, not making contact with King Burn. Hockey Iceman has retired from the race. His woes have ended, and it is a full course safety car. Absolute scenes right at the end of the Tier 3 race. A full course safety car, and the pit stops may start to fly in. And then we'll see, will there be a pit stop at the back? The first one, Sargent, is in the pits from the hard tyres. Mrs. P, you just want to be careful because you don't want to be lapped. Because you know one of those drivers at the front will not pit. You just imagine that. Mrs. P stays out. Sargent was maybe okay if we can get those softs on very quickly. But now we'll see. WXX is heading into the pits from the medium tyres. Soft tyres surely running on an Unfitted Noise, pitting as well. And don't forget, WXX with a 3-second penalty is still advantage to Unfitted Noise. King Luke in the pits unless someone decides to stay out. Lewis, out of all the people, 17 lap old soft, hard tyres, has to be pitting, and he is. King Burn, 10 lap old mediums, will also surely opt for a pit stop. No! So, there is the first buffer, and it is King Burn. 6 seconds worth of penalties, and will get himself into the top. Is it getting himself ahead of Unfitted Noise? He is! And King Burn is ahead of Unfitted Noise. And this may be amazing for WXX now. With the 3-second penalty, Unfitted Noise has to catch and overtake King Burn and then be within 3 seconds of WXX. And this is with WXX being on the fresh, soft tyres. And also, potentially, do not discount King Luke back in the race now on his fresh, soft tyres. Is it looking like everyone else is pitting? And I do wonder now, if I look at Sargent, and Sargent has not been lapped. Neither, well, Slater, of course, is a lap down already. Mrs. P can now pit for fresh soft tyres if she chooses to. And she is. So she will not be lapped by the safety car. Sargent will, I presume, stay out on the soft tyres. Should be able to, will be able to be ahead of Mrs. P in P11, but all of the drivers on fresh soft. Slater, though, I mean, at this moment, Slater has nothing to lose, so maybe just go on soft tyres just to have a bit more grip for the end of the race, although that won't aid anything, but you'll just get a fresh set of softs on. So WXX then does have the buffer of King Burn, despite having penalties. So it is now very, very interesting. King Burn, the only one of the 13 drivers opting for track position. Everyone else opting for the fresh soft tyres. So is it only between WXX and Unfitted Noise? Can King Luke play himself back into the game in the Haas? So we will have at least another lap under the safety car. So at this moment in time in the chat, who do you think will win this race? I will get the so those are the tyres. So only remember that King Burn is on the old medium tyres, and I will just get you back the where is it? Penalties. So those are your penalties. Of course, are under the safety car. So WXX has King Burn as the buffer, but then Unfitted Noise in P3 does not have a penalty. And King Luke was battling for a potential race win. Also does not have a penalty. So surely it's three drivers who I think qualified very nicely as well. It looks like it is between those three. I think, yeah, because you do have your penalty. I think I don't blame you really for staying out. You just want to because you've got two very quick drivers behind you on fresh soft tyres. Unfitted Noise and King Luke, they're both battling with WXX for the win. Of course, WXX, however, does have a penalty, 3 seconds. Unfitted or Luke? Hope for Luke. You've been watching too much Star Wars, mate. Hope for Luke, hey. Yeah, I think, yeah, I would say King Luke is right up there. But the longer King Burn can keep the two drivers behind, I'm not saying he will, but if he can, then it is an opportunity for WXX. And I will say this for King Burn. Unfitted Noise is in the Alfa Romeo, and Alfa Romeo are leading the Combined Constructors' Championship. Just a little incentive if you want to try and keep him behind, instead of just letting him through. That'd be interesting, but of course he may still struggle a lot. I'm also going to change the gap to the leader and keep the penalty situation on, because everyone's on soft tyres except for King Burn. And we still have another lap under the safety car. So we're on lap 29. We are only going to get 2 laps of racing. And with 2 laps of racing, providing we do go next lap, we will not have DRS at all. So, do you still think King Luke is back in it when he won't have any DRS? Everyone has full ERS charge. Oh! Slater lost his front wing. He will still be in a position to pit. He lost his front wing under the safety car. Mrs. P is catching up. That was very lucky to go on board with Slater at that exact moment. No need for Mrs. P to push her soft tyres. She will catch up quite comfortably to the back of the grid. Whereas I still stand for Slater. He can just box for a set of softs. Change your front wing. Might as well. He's not going to lose anything except for potentially losing points. He's not pitting. His front wing looks absolutely nothing at all. Nothing there. And he stays out. That's a shock. Surely he has to pit then. But regardless, he's decided not to. And I think King Burn staying out just helps him. Helps WXX a bit more. So just a reminder that the gap is to the leaders instead of the interval. And WXX needs a 3-second gap to Unfitted Noise and King Luke. And I think the likes of Captain Goodeve and Andrew have shown promise in this race in terms of race pace. So those two down to P7 and P8, can they fight their way towards top 5? But we will be going underway this lap, and we will then go on board with, I think, King Luke. See what the start is like. Very, very, very slow. And Unfitted Noise has passed King Burn. I do just wonder, was that before he got over the line? He was alongside regardless. So again, that may be going to the stewards. He shouldn't have been that close, surely. King Burn has also lost the place to King Luke. So it is now, although very much struggling, but King Luke is into the top 3. And King Burn continues to drop places as medium tyres are struggling. And you've also got King Luke losing place, and there was contact made. Sadly for King Burn, he's losing places. And you do hope there's no form of safety car. King Luke back into the top 4, losing the place to Harvey, who is now into the top 3. And it may be positions for the AlphaTauri to gain, but he may still manage to beat WXX because of his penalty. But it looks like Unfitted Noise, even with the lag going on ahead for WXX, hopefully it's not showing for the drivers on the screen, but Unfitted Noise looks like he will take the victory. Half a second behind with WXX having the penalty. However, I still wonder what could come off the safety car incident, where he seemed to be, let's say he seemed to be very much alongside King Burn at that moment in time. But we'll see. So beyond that, King Luke all over the back of Harvey. And we are on to the final lap then, here in Tier 3 at Singapore. And there is a move made down the back, and it is El Grey overtaking Captain Goodeve into the top 9. Yellow flags at the back, and it is for King Burn. Just keep yourself in check. Final lap, just finish the race. Get your team some points, especially after CPL's early retirement. Anyways, Unfitted Noise, I say chasing down WXX, but will surely not make the move. Yeah, I mean, the game hasn't awarded Unfitted Noise a penalty. So in terms of that, he didn't pass him. But yeah. Harvey then is still chasing down these drivers ahead, and he actually may be in a decent position to catch up to Unfitted Noise, potentially. And there is moves being made ahead, but Unfitted Noise not able to make the position stick. And now let's see any of these two, Lewis and Andrew, very close. And Andrew picks up a 3-second penalty. So he's out of the running, you feel like, for podium. But we are coming round the final corner now, so it will be WXX will win. But the 3-second penalty means he will drop himself down to P5. Oh, and he takes a wider line, but Unfitted Noise takes the victory. Harvey P2, King Luke is on the podium. Lewis just missing out, P4. WXX in the McLaren dropping to P5. Andrew P6, Sergeant P7, El Grey P8, then Betman, Captain and Mrs. P, all the 10 drivers finishing. And now we await the Alpine of King Burn. Currently P12, and he should be able to comfortably make himself across the line very slowly. But there you go, he takes P12. The final driver will be Slater, who does take points in the Red Bull. It will certainly be ideal for the team, even though Hockey retired sadly for them. But Slater does take some decent points. Let's see then. Oh, just cut the corner a little bit though. Just ensure like you don't hit a wall at this moment in time. There's no point doing that. But now coming around in the final couple of corners, and Slater will come through to take P13, but I will quickly switch to Unfitted Noise, who is your race winner in the Alfa Romeo. Some great battles in the race. And it is Unfitted Noise taking P1 in the Alfa Romeo. Solid stuff. Right, we'll watch the podium celebrations. Coming to the end of it now then. So, the race results are in then, so it is Unfitted Noise also taking the fastest lap, coming back from P5. Solid stuff there. Harvey just missing out. Came all the way from P11. Lewis coming up from P12. Had a stern defence at times. So there were a few very, very strong drivers, and I have to say, Tier 3, I'm impressed. Well done. And we will now go through the instance list then. We'll try and slowly go through it, although we do have 20 seconds left, so I don't want to go too slowly. I want to make sure I do get to the end. King Burn, I'm seeing a lot of penalties, mate. Anyways, there you go. There are your full instance list then. And Unfitted Noise taking the victory from Harvey and King Luke. So that is your Tier 3 race completed here at Singapore, and we will be back tomorrow night at the same time for Tier 4. And I believe it will be King Kong with comms. But tonight I've been Viva F1 comms, and that has been your Tier 3 race. Unfitted Noise taking the victory in the Alfa Romeo, who have been strong this season. Thank you for watching, and good night.